Welcome, everybody. This is the Upper Peninsula Environmental Coalition with the Energy Show. And I am your host, Evan Zimmerman, Vice President of UPEC, here with my co-host, Horst Schmidt, UPEC President. And we are presenting the power behind the power lines, how UP electric utilities work, with Mike Furmanski, Superintendent of Escanaba Electric Energy. Horst, can you tell us what we're going to talk about?
Good evening, Mike. Thank you for coming on the show today. And thought we'd ask you a few questions about your work. How long have you been doing this work with the utility?
Well, I've been here for 20 years. Started in May of 2000, and then I was the engineer for 6 years, and I've been the superintendent ever since 2006. Okay,
so is this a unique system, or is it like any other electric utility?
I think it's, pretty common. As I go around different towns and areas, I'm always looking at the poles and just look for different techniques or equipment or whatever that other utilities may be using. And, I'd say we're pretty similar. I mean, I've seen systems that were, pretty run down compared to ours. And I've seen systems that look, really nice shape compared to ours. So, but I'd say we're pretty typical.
Well, that's good to hear. So anyway, Mike, we're going to ask you to talk about your electric utility, and then how it works, perhaps comparing it to UPCO's, and just so people know the difference between a municipal utility and an investor-owned utility, and then give us an idea of what is going on in terms of the electric utilities that are not investor-owned in the UP and a little bit down in the southern part of the state. So why don't you go right ahead and give us an idea of what you're doing over there in Escanaba.
Okay, well, maybe to frame that up, I'll show this. I have this presentation I prepared for the UP Energy Task Force back on July 15th, which kind of covers, it's an overview of all the utilities in the UP, a little bit favoring, more of a concentration on the munis, and another layer down from there is more on Escanaba, because I'm obviously most familiar with Escanaba. So yeah, okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm not able to change screens for some reason, or change pages here.
Or just click on that, you should be able to go.
Okay, the roller wheel on the mouse works. Okay, just the types of electric utilities, basically three kinds. There's the IOU, or investor-owned utility, which is a for-profit utility owned by shareholders. Upper Peninsula IOUs include Northern States Power, way over on the west end of the UP, UMERC, which is the new Michigan-based subsidiary, I guess you'd call it, of We Energies, or Wisconsin Electric, which are, in the Iron Mountain. They have offices, I know, in the Kingsford, Iron Mountain area, and they feed over here into Delta County and up into Marquette County. And then UPCO, they, serve a big part of the UP. The second type of utilities is the Rural Electric Cooperative, which is a member-owned utility governed by a board of directors that are elected by the membership. We have three co-ops in the UP, and those include Elder Delta, kind of central, I guess, central to eastern UP. Cloverland, which covers the whole eastern, probably third of the UP, and then Ontonagon County, which covers a big area of the west end of Ontonagon and Houghton counties. And then third type is what Escanaba is a municipal electric utility, which can either be a department within municipal government or a publicly owned standalone utility. So like Escanaba, we are just a department within the city. So, my boss is the city manager and his boss is, the council. Whereas like Marquette, they are, one step removed from the city. They're still publicly owned, but their executive director, you know, he doesn't report to the city manager or the mayor or anything, that he reports to their utility board. So there is a little bit of a difference there, but they're still both publicly owned utilities. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, you know, feel free to ask as I'm going through this. Michigan Municipal Electric Utilities, there's, I believe, 40 munis in the state of Michigan. Physically, look, you know, all the way from Wakefield over in the west end, all the way down to Sturgis, which is, you know, almost down to the as far south as you can go in Michigan. Size-wise, Daggett, which is in the UP, has like, I don't even know if they have 200 customers. All the way up to Lansing Board of Water and Light, they have about 100,000 customers. So there's 12 of us, 12 munis in the UP, with Marquette being the largest of the UP munis. A lot of these, you know, these munis, especially in the UP, you know, pretty small staff sizes. So many of these UP munis have joined with joint action agencies for assistance, you know, when and where needed. The WPPI Energy is probably the best known up here. They're a full service joint action agency with 51 members in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Iowa. And by full service, I mean that when you become a member of WPPI, you get all your energy, capacity, transmission service, everything from WPPI. Another joint action agency that's up here is MPPA, which is a Michigan Public Power Agency, which they're more of a project-based joint action agency. By that, I mean, they're more of like a cafeteria plan. You can take from them what you want and not take what you don't need, which you can source yourself or get from another supplier. But they have 22 members and 6 associate members, which are all located in Michigan. And the third joint action agency that I'm aware of up here is Great Lakes Utilities, which again is a project-based joint action agency with 12 members in Michigan and Wisconsin.
Mike,
Yes.
would you be able to explain what they actually provide? Do they provide the power for the municipals, or do they do the line work or run the power plants or whatever?
I know WPPI supplies, like I said, all the energy, capacity, transmission service, all of that to their members. And they do have recently started offering assistance with linemen. Like a couple of the real small ones up here being Lance and Baraga, they're members of WPPI. I don't believe they have their own linemen anymore. So, you know, as needed, WPPI can send a couple linemen in, you know, to help them, you know, set a pole or, you know, hang a transformer or whatever they would need done. And I know for all the WPPI members, it's there if they need it, help with, you know, metering or purchasing or, you know, smaller engineering type studies. Like I said, they're full service, and then full service for energy capacity and all that, but then still a bit of a cafeteria plan for extra help that you know, a municipal may need. The 2 project-based utility or agencies, Escanaba is a member of Great Lakes Utilities, and we could get energy capacity, renewable credits, things like that from them. We actually don't, but we could. And then Great Lakes Utilities does not have a single employee. It's just, we're all members. And then if one of the members has experience or expertise in something, you know, say it's AMI, automated metering infrastructure. You know, one of the members put an AMI system in, and then a couple years later, another member wanted to put an AMI system in. So the ones that had done it first, you know, they helped the second member, you know, get their project, their AMI system up and running. So MPPA, I know the only member that's up here is Marquette. They supply a lot of their own power, but I know there are other members, MPPA down in Lower Michigan, that, yeah, they get 100% of their energy from them. I don't know if they offer any, construction type assistance, I don't believe they have any linemen. I think it's more just, power supply stuff, energy capacity, transmission, MIREX, things like that.
So Mike, how does, or not how, what power do you get and where do you get it from as a municipal utility?
Well, Escanaba, we take 100% of our energy requirements from Nextera Energy Services. They're either the first or second largest utility in the United States, and they source it from either their own plants or bilateral agreements they have with other power plants, or just off the grid. They could supply us that way. They are, the contract for us does not specify that it comes from any specific plant or any blends of plants. It's more of a fix the price to Escanaba more than specifying where it comes from.
Okay, thank you.
I know, like WPPI Energy, they own some power plants or parts of power plants. They have a number of contracts with, taking energy off of different plants. I know they're pretty diversified, but they got 51 members, so it's a pretty big load. So they can diversify. Whereas us, we're in the UP, we're probably the second biggest muni, but we are a sixth of the size of UPCO. So there's not really, enough load there to do a whole lot of diversification.
Thank you.
Can I actually ask one more question about these joint action agencies? Because I didn't know much about them. So what's the difference, say, between Great Lakes Utilities and a, do you think you operate like a co-op? Do you guys own anything in common, or is it all services?
Great Lakes Utilities right now does not own any assets.
Okay.
They don't own a building. They don't own a power plant. They don't own a computer. I mean, it's just all the members kind of work together. We have meetings once a month where we talk about, what they're going to do for power supply. And they have a number of different contracts too with different suppliers to meet their needs. And then they rely somewhat on the market to, balance off their contracts. Their generation and their needs don't always, match up exactly. So they balance with the market.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Okay. In the UP, there's the 12 UP members or 12 UP municipals. You got Baraga, Daggett, Gladstone, Marquette, Newberry, Stevenson, Crystal Falls, Escanaba, Lance, Nagani, Norway, and Wakefield. And you can see the 6 there with the star are the WPPI Energy members. Marquette with the plus sign is the one MPPA member, and Escanaba with our Power 2 sign, I guess, is the one GLU member. The other 4 are just kind of independent. They get wholesale from investor-owned utilities, and they get along fine just by themselves. They haven't had a need to seek out membership in a joint action agency.
Mike, I recall that a lot of these utilities started out with hydropower back in the 20s. And so they would have dams today if they're operating using that power. Are any of them still generating their own hydropower?
Yeah. Crystal Falls, I know is, and Norway is. Norway just did a upgrade to their dam a few years ago, I know. And then Marquette still has a hydro unit. Those are the 3 I know of. I don't know if there's any more.
UPCO has hydro.
What's that?
And then UPCO and Cloverland have hydro.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And then Escanaba and Lawrence, well, Escanaba had their own coal-fired power plant, as did Gladstone. The Lawrence plant, that was an UPCO plant. It was in, located right downtown Lawrence, but it was actually an UPCO-owned power plant. That was the John Warden station, which was put in the 50s and then idled, I don't know, in the 90s maybe, and then Traxxas brought it back as a biomass plant 10 years ago, maybe, something like that.
One of the things when during Snyder administration, there was this issue of cliffs dropping out of the WEPCO electric system, and that created a crisis of not having enough customers to cover the cost. And so that was, the start of the end of coal generated power. Was that any of that part of what you had to be concerned about at the time?
No, we were, separated enough electrically from them. And there was a number of different environmental regulations that were, have been proposed, and some had been adopted and then later pulled back. I know Casper was one of them, a big one in the mid 2000s there. Most of those rules that had been proposed or even, were put into place, but then they'd get challenged and delayed. And like I said, a number of them, eventually got removed. That's not why we got out of the coal business. We could have continued to operate our plant for a number of years beyond where we did. Our biggest thing was cost. It was just, the coal, that Escanaba plant burned very expensive Central Appalachian coal, and we burned it very inefficiently, which, made a very expensive, bad combination. Steam plant's efficiency is measured by heat rate, how many BTUs it would take to make, I can't remember if it's a kilowatt hour or a megawatt hour now, but anyways, our plant was like 15 or 16,000 BTUs to make a kilowatt hour. A real modern ultra high pressure plant like the Oak Creek plant, We Energy's plant down in Racine, that's like 9,000, 8,500, 9,000. So I mean, they can make that same kilowatt of energy with half as much coal as the Escanaba plant could. So our biggest reason for shutting it down was cost, and it was a huge difference. We had looked at a number of different things going back to like 2006. We had looked at building a new coal-fired power plant, a bigger one, more efficient. It didn't pencil out. Everything we looked at showed buying energy was our cheapest option. And, we looked at solar, we looked at wind, we looked at gasification, we looked at converting this plant to natural gas and actually not converting it, but putting like a natural gas combustion turbine, on the property and putting a heat recovery steam generator on the exhaust system, piping that over to the plant and spinning the existing turbines. We looked at converting it to Powder River Basin coal. We looked at converting it to biomass. We looked at everything, short of nuclear that we could think of in the, early to late 2000s. And every single time we looked at something, the cheapest option for us was to buy power. So, we started looking at it seriously in the 07, 08 timeframe. We were seeing, we were getting proposals to buy energy in the $70, $80 per megawatt hour range, compared to, burning $100 a ton coal in our plant very inefficiently. We were over $100 a megawatt hour to make our own power. By the time we had, brought it to the people, had a vote, it was a requirement of the city that we had to have 60% voter approval, charter requirement. The first vote, we had like 59.3%. We changed the wording a little bit, had another vote in 3 months, and then we had like almost 70% voter approval to sell the plant, which we worked on selling. But by the time we finally, worked our way through all the different options and the vote and everything else, power prices had continued to drop. So our first deal with NextEra, we bought energy for $57. I mean, it was almost half of what we would generate it for. So since then, we've done a number of extensions. Right now, we are contracted for energy with NextEra out to May of 2030 right now. And every time we've done an extension with them, the price has dropped. I think our last extension, we were like at $43 a megawatt hour. And a big part of that, I believe, is renewables. The wind and solar, a lot of that was put in, and the tax credits definitely helped, spawn that industry. But their production costs right now are so cheap that they're really, I think that's what's driving down the cost of wholesale energy, as well as the natural gas with the fracking. This is, wasn't there 14 years ago, 13 years ago when we really started looking, but now the fracking and the wind and the solar has really come on strong. That's just, I believe, is what's driving the wholesale prices down.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sure. Oh yeah, here we go. Power supply and reliability for UP municipals. The WPPI energy members get full requirement service from WPPI Energy. Others get their power supply from investor-owned utilities, energy marketers, self-supply, market purchase, or some combination of the above. Another thing of note here for municipal electric utilities that they deliver more reliable service. Municipal customers average about half the outage time per year as compared to customers of private utilities.
Do you want to give us a little more background on the reliability issue?
Yeah, just
why you guys are better than others?
I'm sorry, I think we talked at the same time.
I said, could you expand a little bit on the reliability issue and why you guys are better than other utilities, other types of utilities?
Yeah, I think what it is it's not that we're better, my linemen are better, or anything. I think it's just the more localized system that I think a lot of it's travel time. I look at Elger Delta, and I mean, them poor son of a guns, they got to travel from Big Bay all the way down to Shaky Lakes, and sometimes twice in the same day. So it just with a really spread out system like Alger, UPCO has, they just have a long ways to go to get to some of their outages, and some of them are very remote. For UPCO and Alger. I just think it takes them a while to get there. I've seen pictures of and we do a lot of mutual aid with Elger Delta. They're based out of Gladstone, so they're right here. We do our safety training with them. We help each other out quite a bit, but I mean, it's a more difficult system to work on. I mean, they have off-road equipment that they use all the time in the winter. They have four-wheelers with tracks on them to get into some of these places. I mean, we don't even have a four-wheeler. There's really nowhere we can't get, with just our regular our trucks. We have some alleys that are not like a road. They're just kind of a grass alley where in the wintertime we'd have to have a little bit of difficulty getting in there, but nothing like what those guys have to deal with. So just the makeup of the system, I would say, is the biggest reason that we just have much. You guys are
more compact, right?
Yeah. And I mean, most of our stuff is off or very near city streets or city alleys. We can just drive right to the pole, jump up in the bucket and go up and throw a fuse in. Where I know a lot of those UPCO guys and Alger guys, they got to climb. They might have to walk in a half mile on snowshoes, and when they get there, throw their hooks on and climb up the pole. And it just, and that's after, driving an hour to get there. So.
Thank you.
Sure. Municipal utility features and value. Municipal electric utility meets the unique needs of its community. Some UP munis offer other services such as cable TV or internet service, which I know Crystal Falls and Norway do that. And we do things that, we hang all the Christmas decorations downtown, stuff like that I don't think your average investor-owned utility would do. Maybe they do, but when I get new linemen here, they think I'm kidding when I tell them they got to go put up Christmas decorations. But it's just one of the things we do here. Most most, if not all, municipal electric utilities provide large payment in lieu of taxes to the city's general fund. Nationwide average I've seen is 5.4%. And I think right now Escanaba does like 5.6%. But I know some of the UP munis have said they donate like 15% of their utilities revenue to the city's general fund. Studies I've seen show investor-owned utilities contribute about 4.8% in taxes to the city. So, municipal utility, as you know, first off, typically having lower rates, then gives more to the city general fund for, streets and police and whatever else the general fund goes to. Municipal electric utilities meet state mandated renewable energy requirements, and many go beyond those requirements. There are UP munis that own hydroelectric assets, and others own photovoltaic assets. We touched on this before. Crystal Falls in Norway and Marquette have hydro. Escanaba and Marquette have solar. Lance now has a small solar unit as well.
Mike, what is the solar setup that you've got down there in Escanaba, or isn't it built yet? We completed our second phase earlier this year. In 2018 we did phase 1, which was 3,510 panels. It was 0.9 megawatts on the AC side. That's worked pretty well for us. There was some more space at that site. So we made a case to council and they approved it, and we went ahead and did an expansion this year. Now it's just under 4,000 or just under 5,000 panels there. It's 4,940 or something like that. But the expansion, it was pretty, I don't know, getting a little nerdy here, but it was exciting to me because they were bifacial. The first build we did were monofacial 330 watt panels. The second build was 355 watt bifacial panels, which means the original, the monofacial ones are just painted white on the back, whereas these new ones, they're solar panels and they're clear, so they can absorb light from the back to make energy. Which, excuse me, during the summer we're not expecting a lot of bonus energy generated off the backside, but in the wintertime, that's when these things are really supposed to shine, is you get glare off the snow to shine on the backside of these panels, and it's really supposed to help with their production. And there's some studies have shown that by getting that, like if you get snow on the front, but you won't have any snow on the back, but you get that sunlight reflected off the snow to hit the backside of the panel. And it gets some electrons flowing, creates a little bit of energy. It'll warm the panel up enough where it can melt the snow off the front of the panel, and then have the front start making energy. So we just, council here a couple weeks ago approved a memorandum of understanding. We're going to be working with Dr. Joshua Pierce from Michigan Tech on doing a study on, measuring the albedo, is what they call the glare on the backside of these panels, measuring the albedo, and then from that determining, how much extra energy we're getting with these bifacial panels, which will be good for us because we're looking at expanding in the future to another site, and give us some idea if it's worth the extra money for the bifacial panels. We bought them this year. We were not looking for them. It was just when we contacted our contractor from a couple years ago, and said, hey, council approved it, find us some panels, because he said it's with that the investment tax credit stepping down this year and looking to expire in a couple years. The business was just going gangbusters, before the whole COVID thing hit. So back in January, February, when we were talking with him, it was going gangbusters, and he said, you can't spec a panel. You're just gonna tell me what basic idea what you're looking for, and when I find them, I'll let you know, and you're gonna have less than 24 hours to make a decision, or they're probably gonna be gone. So it was actually, we got lucky. It was a weekend. I talked to him on a Friday afternoon. He had found them bifacials. So over the weekend, myself and a gentleman from our electric advisory board here did a crash course and tried to become as much of experts as we could on bifacial panels. There was nothing there to scare us. So
you know, we went ahead and bought them, and now it's cool that we've got the monofacial and the bifacial at the same site, so we can do comparisons. And it, you know, down the road, the next site we're looking at, we would probably do a little different. We out at the airport, where we do have our solar panels, they're all they're solid mounted. We had looked at single axis tracking, but because of the proximity to the airport, there was no way FAA was going to allow that, because if those panels, you know, mechanical failure or too high of winds, they would fail flat, and then we would have had glare issues. So we were curious about it, but we found out pretty early that was not even possible to consider that out at the airport. But the other site, the next site we'd be looking at is you know, a few miles away from the airport. So hopefully we could do the single axis tracking with the bifacial panels. You know, we'll see what tech comes back with, but from what I've seen throughout the industry, that is kind of the standard right now. The most bang for the buck is that single axis with the bifacial panels.
Mike, how's the financing work in terms of costs for panels versus purchasing power from a supplier?
Okay, well, the financing, we had a pretty good pot of money here. Escanaba has always had a fairly large electric fund balance. But what really sparked the idea for that first build we did in 2018, it was probably, I don't know, 2015, 2016, the idea popped in my head that we had, and backing up further to Public Act 295 from 2008, 2009 timeframe, that required all providers in the state of Michigan to have certain percentage of their load get served by renewable. And I think it went like 2%, 3.3%, 5%, and then 10%. Back in the 09 timeframe, we still own the power plant. So our plan was going to be to burn wood cubes. I believe it was Renewable Fuel was going to put that plant in up by the mines. And I talked to that guy, got a price, and you know, my plant guys figured it would run through the plant. It would feed through the plant just fine. Our incremental cost to create a rack through that coal plant was about $39 for a Michigan renewable energy credit. Talked to a bunch of people, got a huge range of what people thought RECs are going to be worth in the future. But I was pretty much in the middle. Part of that law had limits on how much you could collect from each customer each month. If your plan was going to exceed that limit, you could start collecting early. So we actually you could collect for 18 years to meet your requirements for 15 years to drive your monthly cost down. And we actually had to do that. And we lowered, I remember you had to keep residential below $3 a month, and we lowered it. We stretched the plan out, and that reduced the monthly, I think, to like $2.95. So we start collecting this money. Then we get voter approval to sell the plant. We have a round of RFPs. We're negotiating with the company, and through 2010, we were negotiating pretty much the whole year with a prospective buyer. Partway through 2010, it hit me that, oh my goodness, we never submitted a permit to install, which would to the DEQ, which would have allowed us to burn that wood in the plant. It was kind of a oh boy moment, but we went to the MyRex webpage, and they pretty much had like classified ads there, and we were able to buy all the RECs we needed for the next couple of years, I believe at 50 cents a REC, where we had been collecting thinking these MyRecs are going to cost us $39. Our actual cost was 50 cents. So we were collecting at 78 times the rate we needed to, totally unintentional. And then we realized how cheap they were. So, you know, we kind of, threw out the idea of, creating our own, and we were still trying to sell the plant. So we have bought all our RECs up to this year. And we paid anywhere from 30 cents up to, I think, $1.50. And then, no, this year they were more this year. I think maybe like $2.25 I paid for them. But still not a ton of money. Even though it was 10%. Now this year jumped to 12.5% of our load. But we were able to, with our solar facility, we were able to generate some of our own MyRecs this year. So anyways, that's where the money came from. We, totally unintentionally, we ended up having I don't know, it was like $1.2 million sitting there that we had collected through this renewable energy surcharge that we could either, you know, use for renewable energy credits, which, I mean, we weren't even spending the interest off that money to buy our RECs every year, or we could build a renewable generating facility, or we could refund that money to our customers, which would just be a nightmare as people have moved in and out of the area. So that was never really an option. So by the time I had that idea in, like I said, 2015, 2016, whenever it was, presented it to the city manager. He went to the council and, you know, got to go ahead to investigate it more. So there was a guy from the advisory board, Dr. Glendon Brown. He's a guy here in Escanaba. You know, we went over to Garden Peninsula Heritage. They have their solar facility. We looked at that. We were up in Marquette looking at theirs. I had a meeting down in East Lansing, Michigan State University, at their campus parking lots. They have a bunch of solar they were putting up. So we gathered as much information as we could. And then, yeah, early 2018, we issued an RFP, selected a contractor, and that first build went live in August 22nd, I think, 2018. And that spent most of that money. In fact, it spent all that money. So it put that money that was just sitting there to use as a solar facility that's generating for us. So, boy, I'm really rambling on with this answer here, but to answer your question, we didn't have to do any financing. We had the cash on hand, but what we looked at as a comparison of, you know, does this make sense to do? We looked at a 25-year levelized cost of energy for the panels, the inverters, the racking. We bought an extended warranty on the inverters. We kind of saw them as the weakest link in the system. We put up, I don't know, thousands of feet of fence around this property. We included 25 years of lease payments to Delta County. It's, you know, we're leasing this land from Delta County. Put that all together and then looked at what we were expecting for generation over 25 years through the National Renewable Energy Lab's website, their PV Watts simulator, and put it all into the equations, turn the crank on it, and we estimate our levelized cost to be $48 per megawatt hour for 25 years. At the time, we were still buying from Nextera at like 54. So it made a lot of sense to us. And that was just for the energy. Now, this plant generating at the time of our yearly peak can and will reduce our capacity requirements, which is a different item. This you have to buy capacity. Basically, you're leasing a small part of a power plant. So on the highest demand day of the year, you're guaranteed to get power. And then there's percentages above your actual needs that you need to meet. So anyways, it saves us money on our capacity, and it saves us money on transmission. Our ATC transmission bill gets based off of the previous year's data, what we were pulling off the ATC system at the time of their monthly peak. So now this isn't going to help us as much as we would like, because over the last 5 years, 6 of the 12 months, our ATC peak has been after dark. In the wintertime, the ATC peak is in the evenings when it's dark out. So our solar isn't going to help us any then. But in the summer months, it'll help. It'll be a 1-year lag, but it'll help reduce our transmission costs. So just on an energy basis, we were at 48, which was cheaper than we were buying from Nextera at the time. I told you our future contracts with Nextera are in the 43 range. But we still feel that with the capacity and transmission benefits we're getting, as well as the MIREC benefits, it's that many MIRECs less we have to purchase. It makes sense, easily makes sense for us for what we've done and to build more solar in the future.
Sounds good.
You know, this is an interesting idea to me, that if people used more power during the day instead of at night, it would actually increase the value of solar energy for the whole community.
Yeah, to a point. Solar is it's a weird thing, and it's such a small percentage right now in Michigan, you know, in the UP. But you know, every time you add more solar, it devalues the value of all the other solar, because you're going to have that much more generation during the day. And I don't know if UP will ever get there in my lifetime, but California, they have a real issue with it. They have so much solar out there that they have so much generation in the middle of the day that I've read stuff where they're actually encouraging people to charge electric vehicles during the day because they have so much generation during the day. Their problem is, 6, 7 o'clock at night when the sun starts going down and everybody's home making supper. The demand is still there, but the solar isn't able to meet it. So until batteries improve and get cheaper, like California right now, they're meeting with gas peakers that they ramp them up real quick, just run them for a couple hours till people go to bed, and that's how they're meeting the load out there. I don't know if we'll ever get to that point in the UP, but solar is a weird thing. I mean, we love our solar, but every time you add more, it kind of devalues what you have because it's not it's not special anymore. It's not, it's cutting away at that mid-afternoon peak demand. But batteries are going to be the key to it. 2 years ago when we did our first build, we put that in as an option, made it a bit, asked the bidders to include 2.1 megawatt hours of battery storage. We thought that we could, charge it in the mornings from, daybreak till 11 o'clock, maybe would give us 2.1 or, probably need to put like 2.4 into it to get 2.1 out. But thinking we could, get 0.7 megawatts for 3 hours and shift that to, more like 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. That whole solar facility with 3,500 panels, and we have 15 inverters and thousands of feet of fence and a transformer and everything was $1.4 million. That 2.1 megawatt hours of battery was $1.8 million. And we said, well, it just, in 2018, that just didn't make any sense. We've been told that they actually take up a pretty small footprint. They could easily be added at any time in the future. So, we'll continue to monitor that, and, maybe 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, maybe never. We'd be looking at putting batteries out there. Anyways, back to my fourth bullet point here. Municipal electric utilities follow state mandated energy optimization, energy waste reduction requirements. Many of the munis actually had programs in place before the Public Act 295 of 2009 mandate. That act, and this is a mistake on these slides, that was all redone in 2016. They updated that provision a little bit, and it's got a new number now. I never did go back and see it, but those requirements, the energy optimization, energy waste reduction requirements, sunset in 2021 for the munis and I believe co-ops. And we're kind of looking forward to that. We feel we can more customize them to, what Escanaba wants rather than, kind of one size fits all approach that these EO program providers have been doing. And this is not to bash them all. I think they've done a nice job. It's just, I think it's hard for them to predict 1 year to the next what is going to happen. And I've had complaints from customers that, went through their business and, redid all the lighting, went to all, CFLs or LEDs or, whatever lighting technology they went to, and they turn in their rebate and there's no money left. And I've had this, I've had these calls in April where, they had X dollars to that program and just for whatever reason, all got hit early in the year. Now these people would still get their rebate, but they have to wait until the next year. They'd have to wait till January to get their refund money. So I think if we have control over it, we could move that money around a lot easier and just make it flow better. And I know they've gotten better, but boy, when this first went into, came into law, the administrative costs in that program were just out of this world. I mean, my goodness. And I get it. You're starting from scratch, but it was, 70, 80% administrative costs, where we had done programs with basically zero administrative costs. So we're looking forward to being able to do our own thing again here in the future. And then my last slide here is, what that task force group had asked about the meeting before the July 15th meeting was, the big question is rates. Everybody wants to know, what the rates are. These numbers here are from the Energy Information Administration. And these residential costs over here, like in Northern States Power is at 11.95. That's cents per kilowatt hour, but that's all inclusive. That's all the revenue you collect, energy, late fees, connection fees, meter, monthly meter charge, all your charges that, came from residential versus how many, kilowatt hours of energy did you sell to residential customers. And it all boils down to this one number. So this is where they are at. And it's a voluntary thing. So not everyone is included. There's cities in here that, like Daggett and Stevenson, I don't believe are on here. Wakefield, I know they're not on here, which I talked to the Wakefield city manager. He actually filled it out this year for the first time. So next year we should see Wakefield on this chart, and they buy wholesale from Northern States Power. So I would expect Wakefield to be pretty competitive too.
Looks like they're doing a great job of keeping the costs down in Escanaba.
Oh, thank you. A lot of it was just luck on the timing. Like I said, when we started looking at going wholesale, we were getting $70, $80 offers. By the time we got around to signing, we were at 57. So
We also have a comment here from Dixon. It says, I hope everyone here on the task force is aware of, one, the big potential. This is not new green energy technology of stored hydro, and two, the potential for this form of renewable energy in the UP. See current Michigan tech studies. This is the Ludington study. Wind is going to be used to almost double the capacity of this plant.
Okay, so are there any other questions from people who are listening?
So I was wondering about that as you were talking. You're talking about solar being not very useful at the end of the day, but so why couldn't the solar power be used to pull water up into a storage facility, and then it runs down and creates electricity at the end of the day? So there's your battery, and water is something we have, and we have space to do something like that.
yeah, you're right. You absolutely could. I mean, there'd be, whether it's a NiCad battery or pumped water storage, there's going to be losses on that system. But you're absolutely right. That could be a way to store that energy and shift it to later in the day when you actually do have the peaks, or even into the evening. Even after dark, you could take that captured energy and put it to use.
I have one other question. Why? We have solar panels, the big controversy about solar panels in Escanaba because it's too close to the residential area. Why don't we have solar panels all along the Sini stretch? That'd be a perfect place, it seems to me. I'm sure there is a reason we can't do that, but gosh, why not?
I don't know. They may run into cost issues with a power line. I don't know if there's any power lines along. I was just through
there are power lines.
Oh, well, I'd have to look and see what they were. If they were UPCO lines, or probably
They're UPCO lines. I can tell you they're UPCO lines, but they only go to Sini. The problem is Sini to Sioux doesn't have, because UPCO upgraded to 93, I think, or 137 on 77 last summer to help support that more load, but it peters out real quick because there's just nobody, between Sini. There's nothing between Sini and Brimley, is my understanding of the problem. Part of the problem.
Oh, yeah, they may want it closer.
Comment about that? Why we aren't seeing the things we want to see? It's because the opposition is organized. Mike probably can tell you, many of you know, there's a giant, might be the largest solar farm project proposed in Michigan, and it's in Delta Township. And from what I understand, it's on the back burner because the opposition is organized, and eventually some of these developers just throw up their hands and say, forget it. So what happens is the counties in Michigan that have wind farms and solar farms, and I don't care if it's nonprofit, municipal run, or if it's investors, or if it's every investor happens to be a farmer who says, yes, please put them on my property. None of this stuff will happen unless people organize and show up at these township meetings and advocate for the green energy they all say they want on Facebook. They all say they want to fight climate change. They all say they're for renewable, but late at night in the dead of winter in the township halls in Michigan, the opposition is there.
So Dixon, this is Jen.
Yes,
That's why we're having calls like this.
good.
Exactly why.
I
And
found out about this by accident.
so
I'm just infatuated with what they've done in the city of Escanaba. But the NIMBYs run the show when green energy advocates don't show up.
exactly, which is again why we're having this phone call. I just wanted also, the question of the Ludington power plant. So just for everybody's information, the guy who actually designed that facility is Douglas Jester. Douglas is a member of the UP Energy Task Force.
Good.
And he, the question came up of why can't we do something similar in the UP when I gave a presentation a couple months ago. And I asked Douglas this directly, and his response, and I'll read it to you. My initial thought is that I don't think the economics work to build a Ludington type facility now because batteries will do it better. I have an analysis underway that will eventually put actual numbers on this, but he can't quite prove it at the moment.
But
So,
batteries require mining of rare minerals, do they not?
Yeah,
Yeah, but-
actually, lithium is kind of becoming the new oil. There's been a lot of questions about the United States involvement in Bolivia just to get
Right.
access to lithium because the demand for batteries is skyrocketing and we don't have the resources to meet the demand that's out there. So even with the
Meanwhile-
cost.
the other problem with these pumped hydro facilities is there's two things that I'm aware of. One is the Ludington facility actually killed hundreds and hundreds of thousands of fish. And so it's not like it's just pulling water, right? There's a lot of living things on the edge of Lake Michigan. And initially that caused a lot of damage, and they had to go back in and put in a lot of equipment to manage that. And in fact, I was paid when I first got up here to Marquette off of the settlement, which was hundreds of millions of dollars, the Great Lakes Fishery Trust, out of the settlement around all the deaths to fish that were caused by the Ludington power plant. Now, and there's still some death. They can't stop it all, but it's gotten a lot better. And then I mean, you know, there's trade-offs everywhere. So just just remember, it's not just water. A dam is also going to hurt an ecosystem.
The old saying.
The other issue, just let me finish. The other issue is with the mines is unfortunately there are dead bodies in just about every mine in the UP. And the folks who are doing the research are very aware that in getting down in there, they may unfortunately cause movements and changes to the system that could result in uncovering of bodies. It turned out to be more complicated than, again, it's not just water in a hole. And so they ran into that problem in Negaunee. And so they're working on that. And one avenue they're exploring is to just get permission from the families. But how do you do that? Like it's a layered and complicated process from what I've been told. And so I'm sorry, I'll stop. But and there's a lot to consider in this.
Thank you. I think we do need to keep talking about this. And I think this is something where UPEC can organize more events to get people talking and organized around these issues. Dixon, did you have more comments?
Hearing the other day that wind farms are not real good for bats. and bats are struggling right now. The old saying in grad school where we studied energy policy, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Yes, after 25 years, the solar panels have to be disposed of. Batteries are made of chemicals. It's trade-offs. So yeah, but at least there's no nuclear waste, and we're not shipping oil through pipelines that might spill in the Great Lakes. Coal mining has got to be the dirtiest. Scotland is almost 100% renewable, with wind and tides and pump storage. And when I think of Scotland, I think of the UP. You've got hills, almost mountains. You've got places where you could build pump storage, reservoir. It just takes the initiative. You got to have the initiative and the financial backing. And I know there's developers, of course, they're not from Michigan, but they're the developers trying to develop this giant solar farm in Escanaba Township. And if that doesn't happen, that county will be poorer for it. You'll have the library will be open one day a month. The renewable energy brings jobs to the counties where the wind farms and the solar farms are built. Right down now in Isabella County, even with a recession, which is almost like a depression, they're building a wind farm in Isabella County. And Isabella County will have more money than your county because of it. So this isn't just about the environment. This is about the economy and jobs in a place. The UP, from what I understand, has got some serious problems with poverty and jobs.
We do. Thank you.
I think, is that it, Evan? Any more questions on our chat box?
No, I think this has been a great discussion, and there's a lot of exciting possibilities here, and there's definitely a lot to work out here. And there's nothing's ever free. There are always consequences, but renewables are moving very quickly right now, especially the efficiency of solar is increasing. Mike, do you know what is the efficiency of the panels that you're working with right now?
I think we're around 17%, something like that. One comment I'd like to make that I actually made at a task force meeting, we were in Sault Ste. Marie, I think September maybe last year, you're right, and we heard a lot of public comments there in favor of wind, solar, renewable generation. And I don't know, maybe it came off as I was scolding the audience, which was not my intention, but I told them, I said, every time these projects are getting proposed, but every time they get proposed, they get shot down. The local people don't want them. And there's opposition. I said, in Delta County, we had the windmills over in Garden. I said, they've been there 10 years. And you still drive through Garden, there's still signs, yard signs, windmills are bad neighbors and stuff like that. And then up in Baraga County, they talked about windmills, and, they passed a referendum up there. I don't believe you can build a windmill in Baraga County anymore. And then the third example I brought up was here in Escanaba Township about the solar. And I told the people, it's a shame because the UP right now is perfectly positioned for renewables with them reciprocating engines that UMERC has and them engines that Marquette Board Light and Power has. Those things can ramp up incredibly quickly. I think UMERC has like 9 units total. I think there's 6 in Nagani and 3 in Pelkey. But they can fire up 1, 2, 3 as they want, and in a few minutes have them up full power. If if you're relying on renewables and sun goes away and the wind stops blowing, very quickly, those units would be there to balance that. So the UP is perfectly set up for renewables, but I don't know. It seems like every time somebody has an idea, there's a bunch of people that fight it. So I don't know.
And I think sometimes there are legitimate issues with the project. We're not just in favor of renewables. We want renewables done right, and we want to have them done in the right locations. We want to make sure that it's not going to have a negative impact on the environment where it's built in. And I think there's so much possibility there, but we do have to do it right.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mike. It's been enlightening and to find out what is going on in the electrical generating field. And we know that there's going to be more discussion with the UP Energy Task Force in terms of finding balance between renewables and costs, which is always seems to be the big kahuna in any discussion. So again, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us tonight.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot tonight.
Good.
Okay, well, excuse me. We have a second part here. We put together a little set of slides to show you all the things that are going on with Line 5. And it was amazing when I put it together. You know, someone reminded me that it's Enbridge Energy of Canada. And then so I just put that in there because that's where the company has its headquarters, and that's where its assets are in terms of the country. So the first thing I wanted to mention is there's recent court cases. We have one earlier in the year where the court case was between the state of Michigan and Enbridge as to whether or not they have the right to continue the 1953 easement. So that's in progress. The other case that came forward was the temporary restraining order that came out with the fact that there was a damage to one of the anchors, and the state asked that the company shut down their pipelines, and they did that voluntarily, and then they started up again. And then after that, the state went back to the court and said, we want both pipelines shut down because we don't know about the safety. And so there were arguments that by Enbridge that, first of all, the state has no jurisdiction. This is a federally controlled area by the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. And so it kept going back and forth, and the judge finally agreed to let them open the one pipeline that was not damaged if they could prove that it was safe. And then the pipeline that has the anchor that's damaged is now still closed. So those are the two court cases I'm aware of. The most interesting recent thing was the DNR director, Dan Eichinger, demanded a full financial assurance from the company in terms of getting adequate insurance, plus making their assets in their Canadian corporation, because the corporation in the US is a subsidiary and does not have the assets of the corporation in Canada. So this has been going back and forth. The company basically says they will make good on it, but they have nothing that is legally enforceable at this point. The next item is the Michigan Public Service Commission. That is the corporation that has the say as to the 1953 easement. And when when Enbridge came before them, they asked that the commission let them go ahead and with their tunnel project. And the Public Service Commission said, no, we're going to have this reviewed, and DNR is the one that's doing the legal review, and that's still going on. Next slide. Okay, in the past year, the Upper Peninsula Energy Task Force, which was mentioned earlier, had been doing a study of whether or not propane could be gotten without Line 5, because proponents of Line 5 had said that it's essential for the UP, and the task force found in its hearings that that was not the case, and they came up with 14 recommendations, which were a number of different agencies in the state plus a request by the task force to have the legislature make legal changes. At this point, I don't believe the legislature has taken up any of these recommendations for legislation. Is that correct, Jen?
Yeah, you can hear me. No, the legislature hasn't. The Public Service Commission has, and the low income work in particular, which had already been happening before the task force, has also acted, especially around coronavirus.
Okay. Well, thank you. The other recommendation that we make is that you contact your legislators and the governor and let them know that you want to have the pipeline discontinued. All of the legislators in the UP, as far as I'm aware of, are pro Enbridge at this point. And so the idea is that, you know, as always, you let the legislators know that you're one of those people who don't support their view, and that it's a matter of not the corporation winning, but the people winning and the environment winning. Next. Okay, here are the organizations, if you aren't aware of them. Oil and Water Don't Mix, and For the Love of Water, or Flow. Two that have been working over the last few years to shut down Line 5, and they have excellent material. Whenever there's a major issue, they have it set up so that you can go there and let your legislator or the power commissioner, the governor, know that what you want. And then the League of Conservation Voters have been very active in getting people to think about voting in the fall for those candidates who are pro-environment. And the last one is a new one to me, which is the tip of the mitt, and that's really on the north end of the Lower Peninsula. If you recall, this is our mitt in the lower part of here, and this is the tip. So those are the major organizations that we work with to help get this problem of Line 5 shut down, basically. So are there any questions or comments? Well, I guess that concludes our session of the Energy Show tonight. And we're going to have another program in about 2 weeks. We found that if we go on a schedule, there seems to be a problem of getting everything in line. So we're trying to basically have our shows as we're able to obtain speakers. So if you have comments or program ideas, email us at upec@upenvironment.org, and that will come to us, and we will be more than happy to see if we can do something with whatever you suggest or have questions, and we'll try to answer them.
And we're going to be doing more shows about energy. I'm definitely interested in looking at possible projects around here and getting involved with other people to organize to support them. There are times when we might oppose even a renewable energy project, and it's not just a reactionary position that we're taking, that we don't want to be the ones to have to deal with the consequences. We just want to look at everything and make sure that the location is correct, as with anything. Sometimes I think it's possible to get overeager and say, let's just put something in wherever it's convenient. Because it is difficult to get renewables through. And I know the frustration that people feel about getting these projects moved forward. And I feel that too. I think we all do a little bit. But if we can work together and communicate and find the best solutions, I think we can really enhance the use of renewables in the UP.
And the critical piece is to bring in the people who will be affected by the project.
Absolutely.
And that is where they've made the mistakes. They just have kind of left the locals out of the discussion. And you really can't do that very well in the UP. It just does not go over well.
The other piece of it is ownership and who in the end benefits from it. And as has been shown by, if you are an energy nerd, you may have heard about what happened in Illinois and Ohio in the past 2 weeks, where literally $60 million in bribes in Ohio and $200 million settlement in Illinois around what the utilities were doing in the state legislature to bribe their way to keep operating inefficient coal plants. You heard Mike talk about it was just too expensive to keep running them. And what these utilities did is buy their way into keeping them. And so there's a lot of activity around not just is how can we, and that's the beauty of a municipal, is it is directly tied back to the community. Rural electric co-ops are another story too, where potentially the local community has the opportunity to actually own the assets, manage the assets themselves, versus the investor-owned utility. So, Mike started with ownership. A lot of it does flow back to ownership.
So much is getting bought up by investors. I just saw an article today about how much farmland now is getting bought up by investors. A lot of it's controlled by foreign countries. Canada, Germany, and China are buying up a lot of land. And it does change things when everything around here is owned by someone who doesn't live around here. More community involvement and ownership can really enhance where we live.
Are you saying buying up land for energy projects?
I'm talking about just buying up land for farming. A lot of our farmers are getting old and they're retiring and they're selling off their land to investors. And so it's a lot of things around here are just slipping out of our hands.
Well, if I owned a farm, I think I should be able to sell it to whoever I want.
Oh, of course they can. Yeah, of course anyone can. But if we have the opportunity as a community to take more involvement, I mean, there's nothing wrong with people wanting to sell what they have. But, at a certain point when we say, like, we don't actually own anything around here anymore, and we have, people that aren't invested in the area, that can change the way things are managed.
Well, one of the stories I read was a woman who's in her 90s in Escanaba Township who wants to have the solar panels put on her farm, and she's being told to get lost because the people don't want solar plants because they just don't want them. So this turns around. This turns back to whether or not environmental advocates and renewable energy advocates and climate change opponents actually go to the meetings and try and support the people that want to.
One thing I would just like
from Virginia or Washington State, or they could be a hedge fund out of New York City, but it's still green energy. It's still going to improve the tax base in a rural area that can barely afford to pave its roads and keep its libraries open. So
I want to say, on behalf of the Escanaba residents who came and spoke in the Escanaba meeting, which I attended.
Yeah.
It's not just they just don't want it. It is because it will change the nature of their community at a drastic level. They're living where they're living because there is some open farmland around them, and they don't want it to be full of solar panels right close to their houses.
Yeah.
And it's fair. It's really going to change the nature of their residential area. That's what they're objecting to. They're not objecting to solar.
How's it a residential area if you're looking out at corn or cows? Yeah.
It's a residential area that's right next to where they want to put these solar panels. That is what the people are objecting to. We can't make up something else.
All right. Well, then we'll just continue with the the coal slurry pipelines
And
and,
that's not what they want. They're saying solar is fine, but don't just concentrate it next to this residential area. That, I'm just saying, I want to speak for them because they
Okay.
went to a lot of trouble to come to the meetings and make their position known. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank my co-host Evan for, as always, keeping the whole system going. And want to thank all of our listeners tonight and the people who made comments and questions. We appreciate that. And again, stay safe. And hopefully one of these days we'll be able to actually see each other again in person. So
Well, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have to say, this just feels like a real community discussion here, and this is important that people get together and talk through the issue. Let's keep doing that.
well, there you go. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.